Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh,
How's it going?
Hi, Greg. Hi, Jesse. Hi, Mark. Hi, Gaurav. How are you,
hey guys.
gentlemen? All good?
Doing
Could be
great.
better. Very good.
What happened, Greg? It's too early for you?
No, I wake up at 5:30. This is like midday for me.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. How are you doing, Gaurav? Good?
All good, sir. All good.
Okay, perfect. And you, Mark, Jesse?
All good here. Excited.
Perfect.
Same,
So
same. Can't complain. Happy to be here.
Perfect. So we can start then. We can start. So thanks everyone that joined in the audience. So as you already know, you have seen the title. I'm with all these gentlemen to discuss today the centralized versus the decentralized compute, who will power the future of AI. And the goal of this call today is really to discuss obviously this topic, but why? Why? It's because like everybody knows that today we have the rise of AI. It is reaching a new level. So if you sleep for a week or you're out for a week and you come back, you will feel like left behind. And like any great innovation structure, what matter like almost the most is the foundation. And GPU is part of this infrastructure and the foundation of it. So that's why I'm with like all the successful men to discuss this topic. And now we can start. So maybe before starting, just to make sure that we're all on the same level, you guys can introduce yourself for the few people that don't know you, so we can start and then yeah. So maybe because I see you're the first one that I see, Gaurav, you can start, and then we go to Mark, Jesse, and then Greg.
Hi, guys. I'm Gaurav. I'm an engineer at heart. Been in the industry for almost like about 18 years now. Worked in a few startups in US earlier. Then moved to like a bigger companies like did a tenure there, Amazon, eBay of the world, and so on and so forth. Uh, I've been in Asia for last 10 years. Worked with the
Mm.
Booking.com leadership team for around 5, 6 years. Then moved to Binance. That was my first crypto journey. Was there for a couple of years, and then the part of the AI journey along with the IO umbrella from last 2 years. That's a very quick summary.
Okay, that's good.
Awesome.
And now you're based in Thailand, right? Phuket or Bangkok?
That's Bangkok.
Okay, we gotta get back to that later on. All right, nice. It's good to see you to see you, Gaurav. You turn, Mark.
Likewise.
Nice. Yeah, great to be here. Mark, co-founder of Aether. My background in infrastructure building, more on the power and oil and gas infrastructure. Before I started my journey into entrepreneurship, first company was a biotech company. Realized I'd bitten off more than I could chew as a 24-year-old, and moved back into the infrastructure space. Started to get very interested in cloud infrastructure, mostly from the perspective of gaming. Really interested in what Google Stadia were doing and kind of the cloud streaming sort of aspect. Purely by chance, was in the position of aggregating large amounts of kind of GPU compute right when GPU compute became a very interesting thing to be a part of. Was able to learn a lot about the AI space and grow Aether into the decentralized compute marketplace that it is today.
Awesome, awesome. It's good to have you here, Mark. It's been a while I've seen you, so it's good to see your face right now.
Likewise, man.
Yes, and also like Mark is in Singapore right now, so it's pretty late for him and for Gaurav as well. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate this. And now Jesse.
Hey guys, I'm Jesse, co-founder of Nosana. I've been in the decentralized AI space for around 10 years, doing several projects. One of them was a large data annotation project where we would source data to train AI models. After that, I went into the compute space with Nosana when it became clear that compute is becoming like this really, really valuable resource that we need to optimize and make accessible to a. I'm very passionate about decentralization and artificial intelligence. Before starting work, I was studying AI. This was around 10 years ago when I graduated in Amsterdam. It was a very different space in AI right now, but I feel this is the golden era now for the field as a science. And yeah, I feel like I'm in the right spot with decentralization and AI crossroads. that are happening now.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. And last but not least, Greg.
Yeah, my name is Greg. I'm the co-founder for Akash Network. I'm CEO for Overclock. We started the company about 11 years ago to make cloud open source. My background as an open source developer, core contributor to several prominent open source projects. I've gained notoriety for my work in developer experiences, building libraries that are currently used by Kubernetes and Docker and a whole lot of infrastructure native tools. And, Akash is considered, we founded Akash or released a paper in 2017 with introducing the idea of what a decentralized cloud would look like. We've since then we've built and shipped and built a network that is peer-to-peer, open, a layer that coordinates underutilized compute from the globe and provides a super cloud, which is a easy to use, developer-friendly interface to access this marketplace.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. It's good to have you here as well. All right. So now we're all on the same page. We can start. I will ask the first question based on your introduction, because what I like is we have this. It seems like we have the same mission, but you have like all different type of background. So it will be good for the audience maybe to understand like, okay, what is your perspective when we compare centralized versus decentralized? So what does that mean? Because right now the discussion it's become a little bit too simplistic on certain aspects. And I would like to hear a little bit maybe from your perspective, what the difference between these two approaches from the centralized and the decentralized, especially based on your background as well. So maybe we can start with you, Mark, and then we'll go to Greg, and we'll listen as well to the other guys.
Yeah, I guess I'll come in probably with the most simplistic answer, considering the backgrounds of everyone else in the room. The way that Aether looks at decentralized compute is really through the lens predominantly of ownership, right? How can we create a cloud that resembles what we're used to with the hyperscalers, that provides a quality of service and access similar to the hyperscalers, but does it in a way where one owner is not required for all of that compute, right? We don't have to raise huge amounts of capital to buy compute, to put that compute into the regions and the parts of the world where customers need it. We're not limited by the scale of our company's ability to raise capital. We're able to take advantage of the capital that others have and the distribution that others have and the infrastructure that's already there, potentially, as Greg mentioned, underutilized infrastructure. And that concept itself, I guess, is not necessarily the core tenet of maybe decentralized compute as we all may see it, but it's certainly an element of decentralization that I think is that offers a unique angle to tackling a lot of the challenges that we have in the compute infrastructure space right now.
Very, very, very clear. Would you like that? That's a very straightforward like approach, and I like it actually. So maybe Greg, would you like to complete it from your perspective?
Yeah, I think to extend what Mark said, ownership, I would like to phrase that as control.
Mm-hmm.
The way I look at censorship and control, they kind of intermingle. And the reason why we started Akash is to circumvent that idea of control people have, right? So when you deploy on any cloud these days, particularly, there's so much of that, or rather, there's so little control you have as a developer on whether you'll get resources or not, right? So classic cases these days, I've seen stories where, because H100 prices are increasing, people just pull out compute to give it to people that are bidding higher prices, right? There's a lot of just sort of like, if we were to consider AI as a substrate of civilization, the the fuel for AI is GPUs and compute.
Mhm.
That layer itself is opaque and determined by people that we have no idea what their interests at heart are. We essentially create a digital feudalistic society, right? So a decentralized system gives control back to the user, and let the market decide what to censor instead of individuals sitting behind opaque walls.
I like it. So it also brings like more transparency in that aspect, basically.
Yeah, transparency leads to efficiency, better distribution of resources, more open acceptance of resource allocation, that sort of thing.
Okay. I like the thing, and it's also pretty straightforward. And so Gaurav, like we spoke about control with Greg, censorship, like right now, and plus the point that Mark like shared at first. Like, what would you like to add to this from your perspective as well? You still on mute. You're still on mute.
I
There
think
we
I
go.
mostly covered it. Like in my perspective, I normally see it as democracy, right? It's basically a network of for people, for the people, and by the people, both from the supply side on the marketplace and the consumer side. And I've seen how big a problem compute in particular is on the AI side of things. And it's just becoming more and more competitive, right? And it's especially problematic to people in crypto and startups. So before we were starting IO, in my previous two companies, in Binance and Booking side, I was on the M&A side, right? So I was working with a lot of startups where I used to fund. Because of Binance, I used to work with a lot of crypto companies in past. And I have personally seen how much of a stigma these startups, especially crypto ones, go through. Like even if these startups have money and they go to the bigger player and want the GPU, like you're standing last in the queue, honestly, right? Like I think Greg and others have been in the business for a long time. They will realize that they would have seen that when they go to the market and try to do anything, just the crypto tag itself becomes a hindrance in the market, especially in the Web2 side. So, and the same thing is in startups also, in Web2 side also. Like in Web2 side, I've seen startups sitting with money, wanting to compete in the market, wanting GPUs, just not getting it for 6 months. And in our industry, time is opportunity lost. So the idea basically was to create a marketplace where you give an exposure to all these data centers, normal users who have these powerful GPUs to basically rent it out in the market, earn some money out of it, and be competitive. But on the other side, also giving the power back to these builders who will be building your next generation AI products. I think that was the idea where it started from. And then over a period of time, we realized that when we are building this whole network, how many lives we are touching. Like that was tremendous. I was telling a story to someone that I went to India recently, and somebody was telling me that, and they told me the statistics that out of India, Asia region, we basically produce more number of engineers, just graduate more number of engineers, how much you have in US in total, right? And out of all the Asia, the average pocket money for these students is less than $50. And a normal GPU, if you go to AWS, is one H100, which Greg was talking about, is like $5 to $7. You're basically graduating the next generation of engineers, just theoretically good, not practically. Because if somebody's having a $50 pocket money as an engineer in a month, practically speaking, you can only rent a GPU for 7 hours. So then they'll never be able to compete in the practical world. So creating this network where you can give a GPU order for $1, $1.50, you're basically enabling these next generation builders also right from college time to get the practical knowledge and be competitive in the market also. So there's so many things which the deepens are touching, like it's tremendous.
Awesome. Like I like it because, but you use as well like to work at Amazon before like your M&A experience, right? At AWS.
Yes.
So you have seen as well the centralized side of things, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and
I've lived that life. I know how the markups happen. I know where the money is made. I know why the markup happens. So I've lived that life. And that's one of the reasons when this whole decentralization, or like to be honest, like when I saw Akash network when I was in Binance for the first time, what they were doing, And we were like, okay, this is the problem which exists in the market, and it's not a winners take all market. And there are like a lot of other ways to do the same problem, solve the same problem, and we can be helpful to the community. That's where the whole journey started. Is it only
Oh, we
me?
might have
Or
lost him.
Yeah,
I can hear you, Gaurav. We might have lost the host.
Yeah, he looks frozen. I have a little lag, so I wasn't sure if it was me, but yeah, Bourgeois is out. Maybe I'll
What's your take, Jesse?
Yeah, I'll share my take as well. Give Bourgeois some time to reconnect. I agree with like most of what you guys said. I think definitely part of decentralized compute is all these really important aspects. Maybe from my personal perspective and background, I do really believe there is another dimension to decentralization and decentralized compute, which is more focused on the freedom aspect that decentralization should bring. So next to like quite a lot of like advantages when it comes to optimizing compute networks and getting access, I think for me the decentralized nature of decentralized, like the decentralized nature of compute is, yeah, like I said, the freedom part where the keywords would be like censorship resistance and like access for everyone. I think these are really important parts that decentralized technology can bring to networks like GPUs. And now, similar to how Bitcoin brought decentralization to money, I think this is a concept that I connect with. Cute dog, Greg. Yeah, this is one dimension that is a bit less practical in the current day, but I believe that we can achieve like something really important when AI really becomes one of these necessities in life to function, to operate, when it becomes this common like product everyone uses every day. I really believe that having a censorship resistant, really sort of strong free access infrastructure to the compute is necessary, and we're in a position to provide that at the moment. So yeah, that's my extra take. Next to that, I also agree with what is said by the other guys.
I've got a question, or maybe
That's
a
good.
follow-up question to the I guess the censorship resistance and the access points that you and Greg made, Jesse. I wonder how does the safety element that we hear about a lot fall into that censorship resistant agenda, or the openness of access agenda? In some ways, they seem opposed, right? Is that the case, or do you think actually there's a separate way that they can actually kind of align, or maybe we don't care about that safety side? Open to hearing what you guys think.
Yeah, happy to take that. So censorship resistance doesn't mean that you should let criminals get away with using your compute for criminal activities. Just like freedom of speech doesn't mean it gives you the right to yell fire in a crowded theater without actually having a fire. I mean, there are consequences. The consequences in a system like, for example, Akash, right, is, if there's technologies that have been, in use by most cloud companies for ages that detect for malice content on your computer. So if any malice is detected, you should be banned by the provider. As much as you as a user have full rights to have all your freedoms, the provider also has full rights to have their freedoms. They can choose who to host, who not to host. It's up to them. But you, on the other hand, have the right to ask what you want. That doesn't mean that you're going to get it. If someone, misaligns with your, let's take a real example, right? So censorship could happen for various reasons. It could be as simple as I don't like the color of your shirt, to, hey, you're doing something really, really hurtful to children or something really bad, right? There's a range of things. If you look on the I don't like your shirt argument, well, that is maybe a few people in the world that have that sort of like difference. But if you go down the list and go higher up in terms of what nefarious things could mean, something like, I don't know, bad things, that everybody disagrees that's a bad thing. You know what I mean? So there's a range of things, right? So instead of, me deciding what's good for you, me as a protocol designer or a systems designer, I'll let you choose what's good for you because I believe you're an adult from a provider standpoint. Like, okay, you can kick somebody out because you don't like the shirt. It's up to you. But that also means you got to have to suffer with consequences. What if people with the same shirt come? Or if you can, or in a political disagreement, if let's say left versus right, let's say half the population agrees with you, half the population doesn't agree with you. If you end up in a provider that disagrees with you because you're hosting political content, well, they have the freedom to kick you out, but there's at least 50% or more that's willing to take your workload. So you created a free market without censorship in that scenario, right? But if you're doing something nefarious where 99.9% disagree with you, well, there's the market disagreeing with you. If there's that 0.1% that agree with you on something that's nefarious, well, the police are also going to be on their way. So it's like, and also this comes to the argument in general, right? Social media, people argue that, hey, look, all this free speech, and if you're an Indian on Twitter, you get all the benefits of free speech these days. There's so much hate happening, right? Like so much racism. Jewish people had that before. Indians now experience that. So if you think about it, is that free speech good or bad? In my opinion, it's great. How else are you going to expose, people that, it's just because you have social media. Social media is not the cause for people to be racist. It's just correlation. It's not causation. People are racist and people want to be whatever, bigoted, whatever they want to be. They're using social media as a tool to express their racism, but it's not the cause. So that's why, I mean, if you take that argument, like, well, if people are exposed of the racism, let that be, and let the market and the society decide, who's going to what's bad. Or else, how are you going to change them? How are you going to know something is bad unless you get the feedback? It's just like writing a log files. If you're not logging errors, you're not going to be able to go fix them, right? So that's my argument. Like, it's not the tools that make people necessarily bad. It's the people and the environment and so many other factors that make people what they are. Tools are just a way for people to express. And as a tool maker, my responsibility is to have zero biases, zero assumptions, and a full free form, especially with the tool that I'm making, a full free form to express yourself and to be yourself as a human being. That's what I believe in terms of censorship and resistance.
Love it.
And to be honest,
that's an interesting. I'll go ahead, Greg.
I'm saying that this fear is not a paranoia either, right? So crypto is a strong community. I've worked in exchange. A lot of my friends are from the exchanges also, right? And I do know that around a couple of years back, when this current government wasn't there and US was kind of against crypto, one of the fears in the biggest exchanges was that the easiest way to kill them is just ask the respective cloud provider to stop giving services. That was the fastest way of killing it. And a lot of the big exchanges were looking into creating their own data centers and going away from the AWS and the GCPs. So imagine these are like $50, $100 billion companies in their own right, biggest crypto exchanges, and they are in this fear. So there's not a paranoia. That's actually a fact. And the fastest way of killing a lot of businesses as of today is this censorship. So building a platform where there's no biases there is of the extreme importance right now. So I totally second that thing.
And to add
Okay.
to Gaurav's point, I mean, depends on whoever is in power, right? Like, for example, we all saw the previous administration's efforts to kill crypto all the way from the top, and that reflected. I resonate with Gaurav's experience and stance there. And I think that's a good thing. Exchanges started building their own infrastructure. Now that you think about it, those data centers are very valuable. But in hindsight, like, yes, cloud was the way to use compute, and just because you disagree politically doesn't mean you're valuable. Your service is not valuable. And now you have this new administration, which is extremely pro crypto. Who knows what the next administration is going to be in terms of political stance? So that's why it's very important to build tools as tool makers that has no political biases, has no censorship biases, has no biases. Like, you don't make a hammer and decide whether a Republican or a Democrat is going to get to use a hammer. You don't use a pen. You don't build a pen with that intention, with that bias. Why wouldn't you not build a cloud?
Yeah,
It's actually,
funny
those are
when
like
you
good
think about
takes, and
that.
actually a good,
I keep cutting you off. Sorry, man. You
like,
go.
yeah. Now, I was just about to say, it's actually, first of all, it's a good question, Mark, and it's a good take from Greg and Gaurav, and because we had a lot of the discussion internally as well with Jesse and so on. I kind of like even know a little bit of his opinion, so that would be good, maybe, Jesse, that you share your opinion as well regarding that aspect, because I personally know that you're a big advocate of like open source freedom and so on, but that would be good as well, like if you can share your take on this one as well, because I think it will be very interesting. You're on mute.
Yeah, we were just discussing a bit about it, but I can add maybe like a little bit more insights. But I agree with what Greg said. Like, I also think like if like policing what's illegal or not illegal that should be done, but that should be done by the government or like not by the compute providing network. I think we should I think the network should be open where people can get compute to run what they need. And then a large part of decentralization for me is as well that ideally, I think a decentralized compute provider could live on after the team gets shut down, or a government decides that that activity is not legal in a certain area. I think if you have a really strong decentralized foundations, it's possible to live on, for the community to carry on large parts of the network, for the providers themselves to host pieces of infrastructure and basically carry on the operation and keep providing people with infrastructure and keep giving clients access to that network. So I think in the end of the day, it's a lot about that guarantee that you can carry on and be resilient against these events, political events, or certain global events that could threaten the network. And that's also a large part of the censorship resistance there, where the network can carry on. I think that's another detail, but I think we're kind of on the same line with the values there that this brings.
Yeah, that was a good question. I actually had it for later, Mark. So thank you for raising that aspect. But then I have a quick question for all of you, gents, because we are in the topic of security. And for me, what you
thoughts on censorship, right? You were saying something, you got cut off.
I was going to say just maybe something slightly inflammatory with regards to the censorship that we now may see with regards to how the frontier labs choose to collaborate, right? We have this compute layer of censorship that we're exposed to, that we're kind of just been chatting about, right? And now we have entire infrastructure layers dependent on frontier models that are maybe even more centralized from a control perspective than all of the different hyperscalers providing solutions above. And that's an interesting and new layer of censorship that I think is becoming quite polarizing at the moment.
Yeah,
even
biases. I mean, there's a whole effort
Absolutely.
to weights and biases, right? I mean, weights, I understand what you want to keep, but I think biases should be open.
And for me, the biggest thing is the data
But
ownership
then,
on side. Like that is becoming like insanely threatening for me. Like a lot of people don't realize who are not engineers that in the AI journey and this fight, data is extremely important. Around 10 years back, 5 years back, if there's a business who's doing well, you can basically hire 10 strong engineers, have a business team, and you can create your product and you can fight in the business, right? In AI, you can't do that. Even if you have a best of engineer in the world and he's creating your AI model, but if he doesn't have an access to a respective data for that problem statement, your model will not perform like at all. So just being good an engineer doesn't matter in future, right? And right now, majority of data ownership is now funneling to not even 4 companies, like hardly 2 or 3 companies. Google being the biggest. Like, and you can see the best example. Like ChatGPT was leading like hand over fist in the market, right? And Google could come back within a year and compete. It's not magic. It's not just because they have money. There are a lot of other companies who have money. It's just because they have the ownership of data. And if you have a lot of data, creating a model becomes easier. People don't realize when they use Samsung phones, predominantly all the AI which they're using is Google's. And that's like the biggest like tools there in the market right now. People use Google also. So data is becoming even more centralized right now. And I'm feeling threatened for the future builders if it like continues this way.
I agree. That's a very, good point, Gaurav. But then, like in terms of, we spoke about security, trust, freedom, verification, and like everything goes hand in hand and censorship. But then you guys are leaders, and I work on the business side, and I have to discuss a lot with enterprises and so on. Does this position can be a challenge for having good deal with enterprises, because enterprises want a certain security, they want a certain trust, they want a certain control over the data, like you mentioned, Gaurav. So like how does this affect your position on the business side, if I can ask? Maybe I
No,
can
think
ask you the question first, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, my answer will be the shortest, right? Because I think we're the least decentralized in maybe structure and philosophy. Our service that we provide to our customers is pretty much a like for like solution for any of the hyperscaler enterprise solutions, right? We match them on SLAs, we give them services and data centers that are the same as anything they'd see, and nothing they really touch in our infrastructure from a service provision perspective is different to what they'd see in anything at a hyperscaler or centralized neocloud. For us, the decentralization really comes in at the supply provision side. How do we aggregate supply? How do we reward supply? How do we verify supply? That's where we touch the decentralized side. From an enterprise perspective, we actually try our very best to not really be different at all.
So there was it like you planned from the start to mitigate this aspect, Mark?
Yeah, we kind of had our approach was very much to abstract away as much difference as we could from the enterprise solution, and that means paper contracts. It means doing things in very kind of traditional corporate ways, which can be slow and painful and filled with red tape, stuff that I guess we resent being in this crypto world. But it does mean that occasionally you can do business with companies that might have a little bit of a phobia or a bias for working with a company that maybe is a little bit more decentralized or crypto aligned philosophically, however you want to say it.
Okay, I see, Gaurav, you want to say something? Maybe I'll let you. I'll give you the mic.
I'm saying like it depends on what the company you're trying to do, right? If you're trying to create a narrative and do something for the future, and narrative wise, yeah, like you can focus on like pure decentralization and crypto side, right? But if you're trying to create a product where you'll genuinely want to earn revenue, give back to the community in terms of revenue and a part of the revenue, and become a successful business, the reality is, in terms of number, is if you remove Bitcoin mining, the total demand of compute from crypto side, which is like pure decentralization compute they want, just from crypto side, will be equivalent to maybe a mid-sized company's GPU demand. Like the pure decentralized AI business is not big enough that you may earn $50 million, $100 million revenue. That's just the reality on the ground, right? If you remove Bitcoin mining from this, right? So, and if you want to succeed as a business, then the reality is you have to serve both the kind of customers, your crypto side of the customers, your Web2 side of the customers. But then you have to build your protocol, you build your platform in a way that it is seamless for the customer if they come from Web2 side or a Web3 side to your platform and get it, right? Which Mark was saying, right? We do something very similar. We created this decentralized platform, but the provider could be a normal person who is a gamer and who has one GPU, or the provider could be a data center who have 1,000 GPUs. Similarly, on the marketplace, on the consumer side also, you could be a crypto company who comes in and says, I need 50 GPUs from 10 different marketplace, 10 different locations, right? Totally decentralized. You can have it. So that's the way we created this product as a spectrum. You can have it. And you can come as a customer and say, I'm a Web2 customer and I need 1,000 GPUs in a single data center, single location. That's what my demand is. You can do that also. And if you do that, I think then only you can create a successful business, at least as of today, because the decentralized AI piece hasn't become big enough that it becomes significantly big in terms of revenue if we just focus on that segment. That's the reality on ground. I think that's a lot of founders who are succeeding on the compute side have started to take a look at and done things.
Okay, so you agree with the ideology of the decentralization, but there is as well like a business reality in terms of need and demands and so on. So that's why like you have also like this approach, and that's very clear, and I understand it. Maybe Jesse, you want to jump on it as well and share like maybe your perspective from this, because I think like some good takes have been shared.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's I think it's a really important topic to consider. For us at Nosana, it's definitely something that's hard, because enterprise, they won't take a huge risk going for like a decentralized sort of experimental compute provider in their view. And this is something that's really hard to overcome. I think it's also why Nosana focuses a lot more on sort of the smaller customer segments, where individual entrepreneurs, small startups, hackers, like they're way more open to that way of working. So I think on the long term, this is something it's really interesting to look at. I think there's two sides to it, right? That is very true. Like you can make the experience in your product very convenient and like that it holds a lot of trust for how people normally work with clouds on hyperscalers, while it's still maybe in the fundamentals more decentralized and like still has all those properties. But I think one part that like is always there is that if like a partner you want to work with looks into your project, and your company profile will reflect your values, right? It will talk about decentralization. It will talk about open source. It will be like these values reflect from like you cannot really hide them. I think like as a company we don't want to either, as we're kind of proud of them. But so there's always this sort of elephant in the room when you're talking to a large client with, okay, we are like, we have all these these sort of more experimental properties in our network. And the saying where no one ever got fired for choosing AWS in a large company. I mean, and from my experience, this is still very true, and it's why we focus on a different segment. But I think this is also something that sets us apart as projects here. I think where we can cover a lot of ground for various segments of customers by having the right sort of narrative for those companies. And we're all fighting the same battle there, I would say, but there's different considerations. Where enterprise for us is definitely something we're not really working with because of these reasons.
This is just one experience from experience of feedback, right? Or input, right? It's not the experimental nature they are more afraid of in the Web2 side. It's more on the crypto side they're afraid of. Like nobody wanted to work with a crypto company because a lot of these Web2 guys are not educated enough on the crypto yet. So the moment they hear crypto, they start to basically take a step back and think about it, like whether they want to work or not, right? And as you said, nobody gets fired for working with the AWS company.
Challenges too. It's not just lack of education. I mean, No large corporation wants to hold crypto on balance sheet.
Sorry, what, Greg?
No large corporation wants to hold crypto on balance sheet. It's not just education.
That's true. No,
Example,
even the product.
I saw a tweet. I saw actually, just to jump on what you said, Greg. I saw a tweet on about that, where you jump on it. I think, Greg, like you were saying that like the crypto side can be a big barrier for enterprises on the mainstream side.
Yeah.
And for Akash, like you might lose deals like with big companies because you have a crypto side of things. So do you agree with the point that Gaurav said? Yes or not?
No, so there are two things, right? You can only succeed as a business if your product is better, faster, and more stable. That's just the reality of things. Nobody would use you in the business at a high scale if you're just not faster, like more scalable, cheaper, so on and so forth, right? And so, like, we realized this part that we had to build a product where anything to do with crypto should be in the background, seamless to the customer. So if a Web2 person comes to your platform and uses you, they shouldn't even know that you're a Web3 player, right? Like they don't have to buy a coin and so on and so forth to use you, right? It should be an option if they want to, and they should get benefit out of it if they do. But otherwise, if it's a pure Web2 company and they want some GPUs, there should be nothing, no interface with respect to crypto. As Greg said, a lot of people don't want to touch crypto on the Web2 side. So we realized this, and we started to move around a year back our platform in a way where, yes, there will be a tokenomics, there will be part of the token, so on and so forth, but you do it seamlessly in the background, and the customer shouldn't be having any interface to it. Similar thing was there when we started having discussions with the customers also. Like earlier, we were basically going crypto first company, and then we start to have the discussion for deals and all. But now we don't do that. We talk about the product first rather than being a crypto company. That also helped. So you have to build the company a narrative. You have to build the product in a way also where like crypto is not first, but yet because you became a bigger company, because you have all these ethos of crypto, the community, and so on and so forth. So you do that, but you make it seamless in the background, not in the forefront.
Exactly. Very clear. Like go ahead, Rick, and then I will jump on it.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, Gaurav, both are very on dot, right? Like, for example, Overclock Labs is a company that builds Akash. Akash is a protocol, right? We are serving customers now directly that sometimes when there is a need for SLAs and a whole lot of things, we haven't built on that capability onto the protocol because it's not easy to build SLAs onto decentralized protocols. Just, there are ways to do it. It's just not done. Like I talked about, like crazy ideas that we always had. So the reality, I mean, like the gentleman came to consensus is that the reality is businesses don't want crypto to do anything with crypto. They care about SLAs and quality, right? And good product. Crypto is great for bootstrapping, great for getting compute. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, everybody agrees with it. And everybody agrees the bridge is really a traditional product, right? So sometimes, we want people to use Akash, but sometimes when we identify that they can't use Akash because of SLAs and whatnot, then we serve the customer directly. And we have revenues that we don't really report on Akash because that's not Akash revenues, right? These are incorporated Overclock Labs. We have several other products that we built on top of it that we don't really go through Akash necessarily because customer comes first as a business, right? And we are incorporating those features back into Akash so that we can actually move those customers to Akash when Akash will be ready. I mean, we've been building Akash for 5 years, and there's a never-ending amount of features you got to build to get to customers. And a lot of them are enterprises, and they don't really, we have to move very fast, and crypto doesn't really move fast, right? Because the more decentralized you are, the more challenging it is to build because consensus, every little update needs a vote on chain. We can't push to production 10 times a day like most companies do today. The vibe coding stuff, you can't really vibe code your way into decentralized systems because it's very, very, decentralization, the priority, security, right? So there's a lot of things you could break if you wipe code in decentralized systems. A lot of challenges with building crypto. So I think a good approach, like I talk about our deals with the large companies falling apart because of crypto, and it's not a secret. We take those lessons and be like, okay, if we're getting a large customer, we'll serve them whatever way we can serve them, because the need is, unbelievable, right? The demand is unbelievable. And then we figure out how to, get them on to Akash, and we only will get them on Akash if they can see the benefit clearly, right? So there's that aspect to it. We're seeing good news though. One company we work with called Razer that we recently announced, a very large gaming company. They were able to leverage decentralized GPUs to run a campaign to reduce their costs. They could see the benefit very clearly, like GPUs from homes, right? Like 5090s, 4090s that can run diffusion models pretty well. For them, they're doing generations. For their use case, it made sense. So we're seeing use cases where we engage with the customer directly without Akash, and then they see the value of Akash, and then we figure out how to bring them onto Akash. So it's not like crypto is all bad. It's just, there's an education problem. There is also market need, like priorities for customers. They need to go to market. They have their own priorities. They're not sitting here and evaluating, whether we should do crypto or not, because customers are focused on their customers, right? In their business. But sometimes you get like a good guy and be like, hey, look, we are paying $10 for X. We can do the same thing on a D cloud for $2. So that aha moment has to come almost after you use, after you engage with us and after you get educated. But, slowly but surely, I think we'll get there. But it's just right now is priorities are all like commercial and business, right? So that's how we draw the line between and non-enterprises.
Okay, so basically, like I think there is a common ground. Basically, the goal is to make it frictionless, because the token is here like to power the different ecosystem, or also like to incentivize the one that bring like the compute to a platform. But ideally, on the demand side, they shouldn't have to deal with that part, basically. So we have to make sure that it is frictionless on this aspect, and I think that's a common vision that we all share here, and it's good to hear that, and like. We tackle like some very hot topics and so on, and we also often speak about like hyperscalers and centralized solutions. So what I would like to ask you as an open question is, we mentioned H100s and bigger chips, but what about the smaller chips? Like what type of GPU are most in demand for on your side, Mark, and then on your side, Greg, and on your side, Jesse and Gaurav? So I would like to hear a little bit about this. So we cover as well like a 360 degree, like all the topics. So maybe you can start this time, Greg.
Well, my theory, there's a lot of demand for 4090s and 5090s. You just need to look for the market, right? And it's not obviously a traditional transformer market. You're probably going to images and videos, like diffusion model market, right? And then also non-AI use cases for those. Those are really good chips. They can host really. 5090s have 24 gigabyte memory. They're very good chips, right? They can hold a lot of things. But I think the more exciting use case I have for those chips is decentralized training. Now we haven't. There is some experimentation happening across the board that can leverage these chips, because it's not the chip that the value is, but where the chips are. These chips are mostly in home computers. That means there's underutilization, right? Like H100s are not underutilized anymore. If you have an H100s, they're gone. The prices are going up. The demand is so high. There's no underutilization H100s or above, right? B200s, B300s, they're high demand. But the gaming machines, I don't assume people are playing games all the time. There's a time you sleep. There's a time you probably go to work. there's a time that you probably play. I mean, I would, if you have to take a guess, I would say 1/3 of the time you're probably playing. So 2/3 you're free. So there's this underutilization issue in the gaming GPUs or consumer GPUs that can be leveraged. Well, particularly when they are in a optimal energy situation, location. You have California, have solar, right? Most homes are powered by solar in California. I have a gaming PC in California that's leveraging solar. Your energy cost is marginal cost is zero, right? Because it's dual purpose. You're probably using energy for your home. So I think the advantage these chips have is lower energy costs, lower PUE, or your basically your cooling and whatnot. Because if you do it directly, your PUE probably is higher because you may not have optimal cooling in your home. But since you're using the cooling for your house, you can get away with like lower PUE costs or your power usage efficiency costs, right? So you get better economics and internet. Again, you're probably paying for internet, so you get to leverage that. So you get better variables for home-based GPUs that you may not get from a data center GPUs, and you get underutilization. So they make a very prime chips for that sort of asynchronous, fault-tolerant workloads. Because again, these workloads are running in the house. They're not reliable in terms of bandwidth, energy. Energy is probably more consistent than bandwidth, and like my puppy, pulling the wire, that sort of thing. There's a lot of stuff that happens at home, right? Like, my puppy just pulls. She's in this biting stage, and she just pulls all my agents, like the computers that I have my agents running. And that's a real risk at a home computer. So you have to almost design the workloads to be fault tolerant. So it's a challenging chip to deliver production workloads, because they require almost all the time the workloads to be able to leverage and be fault tolerant. That sort of thing.
Okay. Very good take, actually. Jesse, maybe you can share, on your side, what did you take on the demand for the chips?
Yeah, I think it's a cool time right now. There's a lot of different chips on the market, and then there is like so many different models that you can run, especially if you look at open models right now, like open weight models you can run at home. There's such a wide spectrum to play with for people, and I think there is a lot of like cool properties you can sort of optimize by picking the right hardware for the right model and the right use case, right? Maybe if you have agents running, some of these agents might be okay to be very slow, like slow to reply. Maybe they do some research in the background, but you want them to be cheap, right? So you can pick like a large model that just fits on a chip with enough VRAM, but it's kind of slow and quantized or something. You can configure so many things and kind of make an optimized system. And I feel we're right now in the AI space transitioning to the phase where it's just really expensive for people to run AI. I think before we haven't really experienced that, like 6 months ago, at least like sort of end users and for the smaller hackers and developers. But right now, everyone is sort of feeling the cost of running AI. Like vibe coders get these huge bills from running Opus 4.8, and like everyone is like going through the tokens. Like company AI bills are like increasing like significantly recently. So I think there is a lot to optimize using smaller chips for certain scenarios. There's more sort of dimensions there. If you look at like privacy, maybe if data privacy is not really important, there's a huge like story to be made for running it on consumer GPUs. Like even if it's a large scale deployment, that could work really well. So I think it just brings a lot of opportunity and a fun spectrum for people to try different configurations. It's also early, and the actual use cases for agents, I think, are very much developing still. But yeah, the opportunities are there, and I think that the ability to utilize all these different types of hardware for different models is just really cool that we can do that now. At Nosana, we really prioritize as well, like onboarding a lot of different types of hardware, even though the markets might be small. We kind of roll them out, have really good like benchmarking on them, so we can sort of make sure there is a quality guarantee on the compute. But yeah, just the experimental factor for me is a huge win for everyone.
Yeah, I feel
That's
like
good.
agents have really brought that requirement to the fore, right? Where earlier you might have been able to conceivably work your 12-hour day without hitting your cap on your API spend. Now you've got these 24/7 workers that are spinning up sub agents that are just operating massive parallel kind of work streams, and you're just absolutely burning through tokens. And often when you reflect on the work that these agents are doing, you realize, okay, that was not necessarily a task for Opus 4.8, right? That was, literally an agent just like scraping for tweets, right? This idea that you can route more appropriate models for more appropriate tasks, and then take a lot of those tasks and run them locally if you have hardware, is something that I think more and more people are dealing with today than have ever really even considered before they were kind of hit in the face by all of these agentic harnesses that we've kind of seen over the last 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, I think similar on our side. In terms of demand, I think the first question was like where the demand is coming, which kind of models. I think it's everywhere. If you have a B200, B300, or H100, H200, they're just gone. If you have a big enough cluster, they're just gone, right? In fact, the demand is so ridiculous, and you hear a lot of narratives in the market, people who are not in the business, that the hardware people are buying, they go old in 3 years, and then people will lose money. There's so many of these articles which come in. If you're in the GPU business, like we are, the prices of a 3-year-old hardware is actually going up. The prices at which 4050 used to go a year back is actually higher now compared to 1 year back. That's the kind of market we are living in. The price is actually going.
It's reverse depreciation.
It's the other way around. Like, I don't know what people are talking about in the market. Like, we see the other way around. The demand is ridiculous, right? Now, on the other hand, one of the things like which I believe that like our decentralized players' time is actually coming now. It's from a point that when you train a model, it's kind of R&D work, right? You train a model, you have a lot of data, and it's better if all the GPUs are co-located sitting in one data center. The training is easier, right? But it's only 10% of the usage of the models. 90% of the lifetime expenses for an AI model is actually inferencing, where when the model is already built, you just deploy it in a particular place and people use it, right? And it could be anywhere, right? That's 90% of the cost, right? I think today, I was reading a statistic a couple of weeks back. Today, it's around $125 billion business, and it'll be like $250 billion in like a couple of years. That's the kind of a trajectory it is on, right? And we are like perfectly fit for the inferencing side on the decentralized side of things, which crypto is. The second thing is, a lot of time people think about it in a way. I've talked to a couple of founders in Deepins who are like coming up, and they always feel like, if I take a GPU from a gamer or a small data center, what if their GPU is not good? What they don't realize is that in Web 2 also there's a concept like that. So AWS and GCP have a product known as Spot. What is Spot? They basically give you a same GPU at 50% or a lower price, but there's no guarantee when they'll take it out. So if there are 100 GPUs on AWS as Spot marked, and you as a company hire them, after 2, even if you've hired for a month, there's no guarantee after a couple of hours, AWS comes and says, I'm taking it out. It's very similar to if you basically take the GPU from a small data center or a gamer, so and so forth, which is highly scalable, working well. But if a gamer suddenly comes and starts using a GPU, then it's unusable. That's happening on the Web 2 side also. It's basically how good as a company you're capturing data and creating your product where the customer is not impacted, and are you clear enough? Because it's a marketplace. There are a lot of people who are okay with that kind of product. It's happening in Web 2 already. So some people are okay with that, like not having that guarantee of hardware always with you for a tenure if you give it a cheaper price. You can build it in Web3 also with the decentralized platform. It's just, are you clear enough? Are you giving a good product and the prices are okay or not? And I think our prime time, because of inferencing becoming bigger, is actually now. And I think we as a company, we went live on Open Router, which is one of the biggest inferencing platforms in the world.
Yeah.
And within a period of couple of months, we became one of the biggest providers there. I think right now we're doing 6 to 7 billion tokens a day out there within no time.
Yeah.
So I think inferencing is here for the future.
Okay, it's actually interesting, but also like the reputation is important in the case that you just mentioned, because like Jesse mentioned earlier, nobody gets fired by using like AWS or GCP. So it's also a matter as well, like that people get,
it's a reputation
like
thing, right?
used
Like,
to all this.
all our customers, in fact, like all our initial customers, Web2 customers, honestly, never gave a big order. They initially came and they asked for 8 GPUs, 16 GPUs, 30 GPUs, 40 GPUs, like that. Because they were just trying. They saw the prices, saw the opportunity, but nobody was a believer. So they came in, they took those GPUs, used them for 3-4 months, and after 4 or 5 months, almost all of them increased their orders by 10x, 5x of that order. So it's a word of mouth. There's a lot of education which needs to go on the other side from our side, which honestly we are not doing a great job at, because because a lot of people don't realize when you're a crypto company, you're fighting a lot of battles. You're building a product which has to compete in terms of stability and all compared to Web2. You're creating in a way which I think Greg was talking about. Like a lot of the open source products you can't use in decentralized product. You have to make changes there. It's not as simple as drag and drop. You can't use vibe coding. If you're creating a smart contract, there's no vibe coding platform which does a good job out there, right? There's so many hindrances out there. Then almost all the companies, which people don't talk about openly, I don't know why, every crypto company has another product which is token. You get distracted out there. So there are a lot of things as crypto founders we can do to educate Web2 how good a job we can do. We're unfortunately not able to do. So when these players work with us and they see the quality, they increase their orders. And almost 30% of our last 3 months of orders have just come from word of mouth. If you give a good product, customers would come, and we are seeing that. Can we make that flywheel go faster? The answer is yes, but there's something which needs to be done from our industry and we as founders to do. I think we're doing it. We're just busy building stuff, and I think in few quarters or a year, you'll see that also happening.
Yeah, it's a very good take, and I will also say that now we discussed the chips, the different use cases, and so on. But also something that really matters is the price. So like we are taking like as well like this type of initiative right now, like with this live session to raise the awareness, to raise the information, to educate people and so on, to inspire people as well, because you guys are leaders and you build like great stuff. But now as well, like something that people are very sensitive as well is the price. So do they know that is it really cheaper than the centralized solution? Like, is it worth the trade-off on this aspect? So what is your take on this aspect? Maybe we can start with you, Mark, because like you have like a product that is close to the centralized solution. So do you see a big difference in prices? Can you really like, is it like one of your selling point as well? Like what is your take on this one?
Yeah, definitely. I think we try our very best to be extremely competitive from a price perspective. I think one of the big differentiators we have within the kind of the crypto space is this token, right? It is as they call it, magic internet money, right? It's this ability, and it's a lever. In some ways, it's definitely a burden, right? It's an additional product that you have to manage. It takes a lot of bandwidth to have that token succeed alongside your business, and often they're operating in totally different directions, much to the frustration of the founder, particularly when you feel like your business is doing great and the token should be doing great too. But the token is also a lever that we can pull that other Web2 competitors can't, for example, right? So depending on how you have structured your tokenomics, depending on what you're trying to achieve, you can certainly take portions of your ecosystem and use it to subsidize access to your compute. And that's definitely how I think a lot of projects in the space have kind of competed in the early stages. Greg spoke about the benefit that crypto provides from a bootstrapping perspective. That's often how projects bootstrap their early capacity, right? By making it incredibly attractive to use. So yeah, in general, I think absolutely we have to compete on price. I think where we can, competing actually on flexibility and accessibility is equally important, right? If you take a look at CoreWeave, for example, one of the biggest neo clouds in the space, up until just a year or so ago, almost literally all of their infrastructure was just in the US, right? If you wanted to use CoreWeave, one of the biggest GPU cloud providers in the world, you could only use them if you wanted to access infrastructure in the US. If you needed, GPUs in Asia, in Europe, they were not the solution for you. So I think there's definitely access as well, but yeah, you have to compete on price first. And I do think that we have a little bit of an advantage there, particularly during the bootstrapping phase.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Like maybe Jesse, you want to position yourself on this one as well?
Yeah, price is very important. Like I just said a bit earlier that I think, at least from my perspective and the clients I work with, I think we're now in this stage of AI where price is becoming very important across the board. Like people are really feeling the costs. I think this is like a symptom of the fact that just the crazy growth in demand and the fact that hardware manufacturing doesn't really keep up at that rate at all, right? And if we extrapolate a little bit further, this is going to be a huge issue. But I feel like now we're in this phase where everyone is feeling the costs of running AI, and it's definitely a really important factor now to have really competitive pricing. And at Nosana, we're actually for the first time in a while, like we used to always have a lot of GPUs available for anyone to use. Like so, we were already like chasing demand and really focusing on the pricing aspect. But for a while, it was still attractive for use elsewhere, but like for the last couple of months, we've just been completely sold out. So no GPUs available anymore on the network for a while, which is a new area for us. So we're really chasing GPUs, and the pricing is becoming a very important factor there. Like if you have GPUs for less to rent, people will come to your network, and I think this is just going to increase. And yeah, there's definitely more factors to GPUs, but price, I feel, is one of the most important ones now to consider as a network.
And it's funny, based on what Gaurav mentioned before, you can have a extremely cheap H100 that is still more expensive than it would have been a year or so ago.
Yeah. I think Denise, go ahead, Greg.
No, I mean, I don't think I have much to add, but it's the memory. I mean, we are seeing, I think everybody in the business is noticing the same thing, right? H100s have gone up in price, even to purchase them there. The used ones cost significantly more than what the new ones used to cost about a year ago. Because these are really good machines. I mean, H100s are one of those. We haven't seen that pattern across the other chips, though. B200s, B300s, they remain the same for some reason.
4090 is like still quite popular somehow.
2090?
4090s, 4090s and 5090s.
4090s.
100s are the golden chips, I call it. And we don't do too much 4090, but H100s, I can guarantee you, the price have gone up. But B200s, B300s, they haven't seen the similar price increase. I don't know why, because I think like if you look at cost per teraflop, I think H100s are really just a good chip in terms of like the value you're getting out of it. I don't know. This is so unpredictable. This market, like, it's very hard to have a thesis when one thesis could be like, hey, memory price went up. Obviously, they did. HBM memory price went up. H100 being, big memory chips, that's probably why they're seeing thing. But what about H200s? They haven't gone up. I don't understand why there's such a deviation for H100s.
There was a launch of all these models in a very short period. Great. So H100, H200 was fast, and then B200, B300 also launched very fast. And there was an oversupply of H100 because in a couple of big countries, the governments came in and they said that they will enforce a regulation that those companies have to use that particular country's GPUs. So I'll not name the countries because of like political reasons, but there was a lot of data centers built at that time, and H100 was supposed to be that GPU, the GPU at that time. So when H200 got launched, B200 got launched, there was an oversupply in the market for H100. The prices like drastically went down. Like it actually went down like more than organically it should have. But then over a period of time, when B200, B300 demand like was there, they were literally sold out. Then people realized that okay, this like similar to me giving a laptop to my father. Like for my father, M1 will do fine, like literally fine, right? But everybody wants M2, M3, M4. But if M2, M3, M4 are sold out, then you realize like M1 is good enough, right? And then slowly and suddenly the M1 prices start to go up. It's very similar for H100.
I see. I mean, there's probably truth to that because I think I agree with you because when the beginning, the H100s came out, they were super expensive, right? Like I think they're not super expensive. They're the same price that they are right now, I suppose. Some $2, $290 range. That's $275, $290 range, right? That's the range. Prices have gone back. I mean, I agree. I mean, because there's a crunch all over, and the difference between H100s and H200s, besides the memory, it's the same speed. B300s are probably like much faster. In the launch, I mean, there are new models that can leverage H200s as well, I suppose. But yes, I think there's truth to it. There's some truth to the oversupply in the interim that led to lower prices. But now things are catching up. Either way, I mean, if you bought H100s a year ago, you're sitting on gold. So
yeah,
yeah, people try to be GPU rich with all this volatility, all this price going crazy. So it's funny to see that as well. We still have, let's say, 15 minutes. So there is like one or two topics based on everything we discussed that I would like to discuss with you guys. It's about the different regions. So, Greg, you're based in the US, SF. Gaurav, like in Thailand, Mark in Singapore, Jesse in Europe. So, what is the difference between the regions from your perspectives in terms of the demand and everything like that? And also, do you see an opportunity in the emerging economies? And for this question, maybe we can start with Jesse, because I think like it's good to start with Europe to see a little bit where Europe stands on the regulation side of things, if it's slowed down those things or not, and then after that we can go to Gaurav, because it's also good to have like the perspective from Asia and Thailand, most perspectives more precisely.
Yeah, of course. Like we are mainly based in Europe, which I think it's the smallest market compared to some of the others you named. For us though, like we're really like global in every sense. So our GPU providers as well as our clients are really global. We don't really make that distinction. It's true that like because our team is there, marketing wise and company presence wise, we talk a lot with, we go to a lot of conferences and speak a lot within, for example, the Netherlands and other parts of Europe, which it's a growing, like especially on the Web3 side as well, there is a big community there. So we are there and we're present, but I think the market for me, like Asia is the most interesting market to look at when we look at like company expansion and finding clients and going to conferences for business development. I think it's definitely bigger and there is more happening there. We're definitely, one of the things we have is we don't restrict ourselves to European markets at all. Anyone can use Nosana from anywhere in the world at any time right now. So that's I think we don't really identify too much on a certain region.
Gaurav, like what's your take on Asia? Because we know that Singapore is a good place to be. So we have clients there and so on. And also like we discussed with Greg, we know that the US are also like pushing on this side. So like maybe with the audience, that would be good to share like about like Asia, Southeast Asia, and like emerging, like I would say, economies. How is the situation over there? Do you see a lot of demand? Do you see a lot of like providers? Like, are there opportunities over there on this one of this side of the equation?
I think the demand is there in Asia for sure. Like I happen to be in Thailand because I've been in a lot of countries, but like I relate to Thailand a lot. It's close to India. Travel is much more easier, so I'm like, set up out here. But in terms of business, the reality is the lion's share of a business also comes from US. Like till I'll say US is a hub for startups. There's a lot of money which flows in US in startups and software side, and as all of them have covered in past, for majority of us, the customer base is startups or mid tiers, and the most blessed startups and mid tiers happens to be in US. So the major share always comes from US in AI space. That's a reality, right? But on the other side, Asia is growing exponentially, right? It's not a land share, but it's not non-significant either. It lies in 30 to 40% range for us in terms of revenue. Singapore is growing. A lot of companies in the Middle East also, which are growing, honestly. So I think it's kind of a mixed. And our sales teams and our team is actually set up in US and Asia both. Like I think there are only two people in leadership who's in Asia side. Otherwise, the majority of our leadership also sits in US, and they are out of US. So uh, that way around, it is.
Okay,
But the
and
good thing,
and
the good thing which we see is the market dynamics is a bit different. I think Jesse can speak for it, right? If he wants. Uh, Most of the European customers which we get, they want compute out of Europe itself. They don't go out. Like majority of our customers who come from Europe, they'll say we want it in their respective country or the continent itself, right? US people are more open. Um, they normally have a more appetite for compute, so bigger revenue comes from there. Asia is the one which is growing in last 1.5 years. It became from less than 10% to like 30-40%.
okay, but also like in terms of the type of compute that will be needed, because I feel like the US, maybe Greg and Mark can also correct me. I feel like the US, they're like more hungry for enterprise GPUs. While for instance, emerging markets will be very happy with consumer GPUs like 4090s, 5090s, and maybe like 60,000, 60,000. But like, how do you feel about that? Because like Greg, for instance, you're like in a very like a hotspot with SF. Like, are they very only hungry like for enterprise GPUs, or like the other startups that also really look at like consumer GPUs over there?
I, I mean, generally speaking, enterprise like high density GPUs, I'm talking about H100s and above, are significantly in higher demand than consumer GPUs across the board. I don't think SF, China, Asia. I mean, it's my opinion. I haven't. But the question whether 5090s and 4090s are they useful? Absolutely. But the use cases are very minimal, right? You can't really. I mean, they're limited to diffusion models, right? That's what you use them for. You can run some non-diffusion models. Okay, if you're one good use case is I have in my home 65090s running my house. Good chips. They're they run Llama 70B instruct pretty well. They run pretty good models pretty well. I bought them because they're consumer chips and they are something that you can easily get them. Used to, at least, I don't know now, but I got them a while back, and they're pretty good chips. They're not as great as H100s in terms of efficiency and whatnot, but they're good chips for home. So home purposes and that sort of thing, they're great. You can't replace them with you can't replace a H100 with a consumer. That's the reality. But the demand here it's crazy because like I could just go out randomly on a Tuesday night to a bar and come back with like 3 leads. That's how the demand is here. Like I mean, whether these leads are good or not, that's a different story. But at least I would come back and be like, and qualified leads, and I would be like, look, and I would just qualify them like literally sitting and eating a mango, because that's what people are doing now. They're not drinking anymore. The mango party, you go eat mangoes in parks in the afternoons, right? So that's drink kombucha, whatever. So but the problem is there's so much concentration of demand, and everybody is like compute constrained around, especially the agents. Like right now, while having the call, I have like 3 agents like debugging something I'm working on. So always this probably spend like a few hundreds of dollars just in this 1 hour trying to like use compute. And I use compute both from Akash ML, as well as Claude and OpenAI. I balance them off for different tasks. But the point is, I'm just no stopping from out of compute. And even when I'm not working, I have these sub agents running. As long as my dog is not pulling my cables, they're running. The biggest threat to my agentic token usage is my puppy, but that's a different topic. But the point is, everybody I know in San Francisco are doing this, right? It's nonstop. You're sleeping, your agents are running. You're driving, your agents are running. Most of the time, you're just talking to this guy. You're not typing. I mean, almost all the time, I don't type anymore. I mean, and I saw this stat somewhere, and I think I want to close the stream with my side of the stream with one thought. I saw this stat somewhere which blew my mind. There are about 1 billion people that use AI in some form or the other, right? Some of them directly using ChatGPT, Anthropic, or Google Gemini, but some of them indirectly. They use AI one way or the other. And that's, still the TAM for AI is like, 9 billion, whatever, right? The whole population, right? So we had like 1/9, of the population, barely, a little over 10% with using AI. So there's still a lot of opportunity. Out of that, like 11%, how many of them you think use agents or experience agents, like people like me, experience agents? I mean, I'll give each one of you a guess. Pick a number. I mean, assuming you use agents.
All right, Mark, you start.
Right?
Percentage or people? Number of people. Oh man, I don't know, like 50 mil?
50 million. Gaurav.
Less than 2%.
2% of what? Of internet of
overall people who are using AI will be using.
So about 1 billion people use AI. 2% is what? 20 million.
I'll say in terms of number, less than 5 million.
So 1 billion. Sorry, 2% of billion is like 20. Yeah.
Let's say, around 5 million.
Okay, are you ready, Jesse? What's your number?
I think very little, honestly. But yeah, like I don't know. But you said 1 billion people use AI. Was that the number?
Users, yeah.
All right, I'll go for 10 million then.
10 million. Bonjour. Sorry, doing your name.
I would say as well, like very little. Like I would go as well for 1 or 2%.
1 or 2% is still 20 million. This will blow your mind, and this will make all of you listening to this call instantly go buy all 3 tokens here, or 4 tokens here, representing 2.4 million. Only 2.4 million people have experienced agents like the experience that we have. Because if you experience agents, you instantly realize the productivity gains, right? It's phenomenal. Like I'm spending way more money than I would pay my engineers base salary on tokens. Just to give you an idea. Like, so if 2.4 million is why I'm paying 4 times more for my memory, what do you think that number is going to be when 24 million, which is the drop in the bucket, which is like 2% of all the AI users. So we're right now at 0.2% of all the AI users. What if the number just goes to 2%, which is a order of magnitude gain, which is even not that bad. 24 million is like, it's not that many people, There are a lot more than 24 million white collar workers in the world. So that is a number, I think, that just makes you wonder, like, I don't know where we're going to get supply. Like, where's the GPUs going to come from? Like, so your question about like, are 1590s useful? Yeah, because the crunch is so big that I would take a GPU that's available versus a GPU that's not available. So I don't know whether we are even in a position to tell you like what kind of GPU is going to be useful, because every type of GPU that can compute a token will be useful at this point, in my opinion. That's why I'm running a lot of my local home tasks on my local 5090, because I just don't. The tokens are so expensive now. Like I would rather have my home computers, like the pattern that I would like right now I'm succumbing to, which I don't want to. I mean, ideally I would just hit a button and get everything done. Is like I would write my plan using like Cloud or whatever, the latest and the greatest model, and I'll use a small, low, cheap model, slow model, running on my 5090s, maybe emitting like 10, 20 tokens a second, which is super low, do an all-night job to implement the plan to write my code. So I'm okay. I would schedule this like thing, which normally would take like less than an hour on a faster model. I don't mind that taking 12 hours or whatever by the time I come back. So what I'm saying is like every GPU will be useful some way or the other. I mean, maybe things are maybe slow, but that's fine if you want slower tasks. So I have some side projects that I'm working on. I don't want to use the latest model and pay the latest prices. Speed in this, like, how ChatGPT charges you like one time, or it consumes 1.5 times more tokens when you have fast mode. Speed is your, again, like a leverage. Like if you want faster, you pay higher, fast lanes, that sort of thing. I think every GPU will be just useful. So don't like pick and choose, I suppose, like what GPUs you can thinking. I think every GPU will be useful at this point.
It's a human nature thing also, as I was saying earlier. Like everybody wants the latest model in everything. When you go and buy a laptop also, you always want the latest model, even if you don't need it, right? Like the same thing for GPUs also. Everybody wants B200, B300 also. Like we have practically told our customers that for their use case, H100 will do, but they still want B200. It's just the nature of people, right? That's where we are. And I think what Greg was saying here, I agree. I bet 90% of that point, like that 2.5 million, will be software engineers. It's not even like, and I can bet you we have not even covered 30% of all software engineers who are using agents.
The 40 million software engineers in 2015, according to GitHub data. I don't know how many people there are now. 40 million software engineers. Out of that, only 2. Most of them, I agree, are developers probably at this point, right? Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but go on.
So they are mostly software developers. So covering just overall software developer community or geeks in next couple of years or a year itself will make that number like 3-4x. And during that life of development, when those agents becomes more seamless to use, like with much more features, stability, and trust, and once the real world people, like non-tech people, start to adopt to it, like I do understand that a lot of people have this fear of like seeing the share, because I've seen a lot of articles, share prices of these compute companies going above so and so forth. Will there be GPU demand and all? Like I'm genuinely saying, like whatever you build in form of GPUs, it'll fall short in the coming years for a fact. Like it'll not be like you cannot develop GPUs fast enough compared to the demand which is coming in.
Yeah,
it's true right now. It was true 6 months back, and trust me, it will be true 3 or 5 years in future also, because the adoption curve is exponential.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen the kind of consensus that comes from not only this crowd but everybody. Like Gaurav was saying, like you can't build enough GPUs or you cannot deploy enough GPUs that's going to serve the market. You just can't, and that's a consensus. We're seeing, everybody in this room are seeing the demand. Like H100s, all this is like nuts, right? And it's all agentic. It's all agentic for the most part. And there's just a drop in the bucket right now. Like 40 million engineers, software engineers, like only 2.4 million out of that experience. Imagine the 40 million experiencing, like 10x, right? So it's crazy. It's and talking about inference, like I don't think there is enough. Like most of our usage for inference, it comes from Hermes or OpenClaw, which are agents, by the way. I mean, and you see like and you see them just getting better and better and better. So the agents like load up on skills. Skills is just a abstraction for more token usage. So the skills are getting better. So you can see the path as to why this demand, the supply crunch is happening right now, and the demand is increasing because of this clear agents, right? So yeah, it's overall very, very exciting, very early. And people talking about ROIs and crap, like I see these arguments online, and people compare this to like mortgage-backed securities and like all kinds of dumb analogies, like I want analogies like nuclear bomb analogy from Dark Age to like Jensen Huang.
Oh.
A lot of dumb analogies that are happening right now, and that's just pure noise because we're not building like homes, that is immobile, right? These are GPUs, that are liquids. These are all kinds of things. So don't get too distracted by the noise and focus on what's important, and really pay attention to Open Router. Like, just Open Router puts out incredible reports in terms of like how many models are being used. You can see the diversity of models. Right now, there are about 400 open source models that all have over 100 daily active users. So, and that's just increasing, right? And to pay attention to like these metrics, these are not like how much investment dollars went into like building OpenAI's like wet dream. That is all separate, but just look at the usage, where the usage is coming from, how the usage is coming from, agentic or human, and look at the model usage. And the reason why you're seeing this many smaller models taking a bigger sort of like footprint in terms of usage than your big models is because agents can, like, if you ask me, human, to use a model that's going to emit like 10 tokens per second, that's like I'll be running out of patience, right? Like, but an agent can wait. An agent can use crypto, agent can use slower models, agent can use any type of model if you remove the human out of the equation. So yeah, look at those patterns before you sort of like can come to a conclusion instead of just looking at the surface. Sorry.
Yeah, it's good that you share this point because 2 weeks ago we had like a retreat with the company and really focus on this aspect because we realized a little bit the same thing, right? So it's quite of a nice coincidence that we are sort of like closing the call on this note because there is a massive opportunity for all of us here, and I'm pretty sure that like Mark, Gaurav, and everything as well like also notice it, and everybody is ready to tap into it basically. And then like to close the call, especially on this note of agents, and the question that Greg asked is, let's take a last bet, and maybe we can start again with you, Gaurav, on this aspect. Where do you see the AI infrastructure in 5 years? Like basically, like let's reply to a question: centralized versus decentralized compute. Who's gonna take over? How do you think it's gonna be structured in 5 years from now? And where do you see like IONET 5 years from now?
I think the market is so big, as you were saying, like the demand is ridiculous, right? That there will be no winners take all market. I think centralized player will exist, but there'll be a big chunk of their revenue which will be taken by the decentralized players. And within decentralized players, also you'll see multiple players coming in, which is already the case today. That will be the reality, right? Now, where the AI space would be, honestly, I don't know. The reason is, as Greg was touching to it, the rate at which development is happening, like whatever I'll tell you, I know for a fact I'll be undermining the potential which is there, because the vibe coding platforms were non-existing 2 years back. Within 2 years, the vibe coding platforms have gone like far ahead, right? Now, imagine in a year from now, vibe coding platforms becomes much more matured, that you can do many things. Then agents becoming more matured, then compute becoming cheaper. And see the flywheel. The agents can work on their own. There's a vibe coding platform which can do their own things. Like the agent can pick the best product ideas there in the market. You plug in the data of the company. There's a vibe coding they can do on their own. They can try the idea. The compute is cheap. It's a like self-fulfilling
Yeah.
prophecy kind of thing that the innovation will happen like at a great speed. So where will we reach in 5 years? Like we just don't know, right? But we're in a
You cannot
great
even
age
imagine,
where
basically, because
I cannot even imagine honestly, right? Because the other thing which has happened
yeah.
is I know from my past experiences that I had a lot of friends because we're engineers, right? There are very few coding engineers who are great at product thinking. And almost all the coders who have product thinking, more often than not, start their own companies, become founders and all, right? Um, that's what happens because they're like very, very, like the coders are many people are mostly who stick to their own problems, try to solve it. They have fun in that. They're very less percentage of people who are product thinking in the tech world, who are coders, right? I've seen a lot of product people who are good at product ideas, but they weren't able to code, right? And for these guys to find a co-founder who can code and all was always a friction. Was always a friction. I've talked to so many of my peers with great ideas. They couldn't start a company because they couldn't code, and somebody else in a bigger company will start with an idea and like potentially gone, right? But with the coming of these vibe coding platforms, I've seen a couple of my friends already made $1 billion company, like with just 3, 4 people. And with the maturity of these vibe coding platforms in the future, this will just like be accelerating. I foresee a lot of young college students who will come out and start a lot of good companies also. So where are we headed? At a great place. Where will we be in 5 years? Like I can't guess. I can tell you where we'll be in 6 months. 5 years in our current age is like way too far out, honestly.
Okay, thank you for this take, Gaurav. I appreciate the honesty as well. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, maybe I'll take a slightly different look. I do think decentralization and the types of solution that offer advantages, hopefully from a utilization or an access perspective, they'll become more and more necessary as compute demand skyrockets and the bottlenecks just continue to become tighter and tighter. I think there's also other competing elements that are coming to the surface that will add complexity to some of those bottlenecks. I think sovereign AI is going to be a big an important piece of what the kind of the compute infrastructure outlook looks like globally, right? For example, a lot of data center infrastructure in places across Africa doesn't exist yet, right? And you have data centers in one location housing the data centers of countries, the neighboring countries that are maybe not the closest of friends, right? And I think that in general, there's going to be a lot more interest in where compute is located and who owns the compute. And I think that's going to play heavily into whether hyperscalers are able to participate in some of these emerging markets, maybe as well as we can in the decentralized space where access and distribution is one of our advantages.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark, for this closing note. Craig, a closing note for you
Yeah.
on this
So
aspect. What is your bet?
my bet that two main drivers right now, challenges I think centralized compute is not solving, or maybe solving, but taking a very interesting approach. One is energy scarcity. Second is privacy. Right.
Yeah.
And these two are going to give decentralized computing incredible opportunity to get a leg up. Energy scarcity, I testified before Congress on this. The reason is world across, we produce a lot of energy, but we cannot transmit them. Right. So in America, for example, we have a lot of renewables, mostly driven by residences, capturing using solar. We have a lot of solar. California alone produces about 60 gigawatts of solar. That's equivalent to 60 nuclear reactors, right? We have a lot of solar. We just can't, the grid can't handle that much amount of energy because it's limited by the copper wire. So if you cannot transmit energy, the only solution is to bring energy because AI needs a lot of energy, especially training. Because you cannot bring energy to where the compute is. The only solution is to bring compute to where the energy is. A practical solution, right? So now, if you take that, if you take that into account, the question is, can we actually train models using distributed networks? That means, heterogeneous compute, 4090 here, 5090 there, H100 here, different types of compute spread across the world, tapping into a local grid? Yes. There are 5 companies now that all have shown that this is possible, right? There's even a 100 billion parameter model that was trained using techniques called dial-up-co and heterogeneous scheduling, a whole lot of techniques you can employ, and these techniques are getting better and better. They're not close to, in terms of efficiency, what a centralized model can be trained on, but it's possible, in the possibility stage. Second is privacy, because if you're increasingly going to have AI mingle in your daily life, like for example, in my home, I have all the camera feeds, all the microphones, all my data, all my family's data, all the sensor feeds, they're all managed by an AI, and there's no world I would give that information out of my network. There's no way. Like, I would not trust any cloud with that level of intimate information. That's just a rule that people should have, I think, because there's nothing called a secure. I mean, as secure as a cloud can be, there's always attack vectors that you may not have seen, right? So keep that in mind, right? That there's a reason why Department of Defense has their own data centers, right? So they don't use a cloud for a reason. Or Department of War rather now. But so the thing about privacy that's going to force people, and there are industries like healthcare and legal, and there are other industries that just can't use a cloud legally. If you're going to see more and more compute in the house that protects privacy, at the same time gets you cheaper access to compute, because now you're subsidizing that compute with your energy that you're capturing, your bandwidth that you already pay for that you don't use most of the time. So you have that incredible opportunity to leverage home compute. I think that will lead to a bigger interest in more distributed compute. Now, do we have products that you can plug and play in a home? Not quite. I mean, we're not talking about a Raspberry Pi with a GPU. We're talking about a good cluster of like 8 GPUs or at the minimum, right? Maybe in more. Are there efforts to get there? Yes. I mean, NVIDIA recently announced that they are partnering with a company to install like RTX 6000, Pro 6000s, which are very good inference grade compute at homes now for new constructions. There's a lot of opportunity to actually leverage the home network. So taking into account the privacy, which also has cost benefits, and the training aspect of it, which I think has an immediate opportunity if the protocols working on this can figure out their financial models to take on, the centralized compute monopoly at this point. So 5 years a lot of things could happen in 5 years, but there are 2 strong indications I think you got to pay attention to. That let you predict where the topology will be going.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. I hope everybody knows like the.
I'm saying for the security part, NVIDIA launched that the TE thing already, right? They're aggressively the NVIDIA this TE, where you can basically the confidential computing side of things, where you can run all your jobs in a secure environment, and even the owner of the GPU.
TE has side channel attacks. It's not full secure as it's advertised to be, right? Like NVIDIA's own statement, along with Intel's and everyone else, when you asked about what they're going to do about side channel attacks, they basically said, "Oh, look, put this in a data center, and we're going to rely on the data center's word at this point that there's no nefarious activity will happen to attack side." There is no
Right. So I
100% foolproof secure solution that is practical at this point, I would call. And TE is overblown. It's not as secure as people think. It's secure if people don't touch the computer, but it's not. There's side channel attacks that no one has answers to.
I think this is somewhere we disagree. I think we could have a longer conversation
Where do you disagree?
around it. But I think
That's
one
for
thing
that's gonna be for the next episode. That's gonna be for the next episode.
But
So
I think one thing,
we keep some suspense.
yeah. But I think one thing which we can agree on is that NVIDIA at least started to work on the site. Even if your take is that it's not secured, one thing you can agree on is that NVIDIA have started to focus on that part also.
I didn't say it's not secure. It's only secure under certain conditions.
Correct. If it's not foolproof, let's say in the autumn it's not foolproof. I think otherwise. But even if it's not the case, let's assume.
What about the HBM4 memory attack? Like, there's no solution to that.
There is. Like, I can actually send you a paper which like AWS is launching this with. But the point is, the NVIDIA have already started to work on it. I think I'm forgetting the company's name. They basically bought a couple of other companies just to build on it, on this particular part. So I think they're already doubling down on the security side of things. And I think a lot of the current companies also have started to build products around TE. So I think this area will be tackled in a year or so, within a year. This is something which I personally see will be solved within a year.
So I've been paying attention to TE for the last years, and every year they say they're going to have a solution, and every year they'll be disappointing. So if you're going to trust the overlords more than I trust, based on my experience, wish you all the best. I would love to see the paper. I actually like to see what's going on.
That is always the case with technology. Technology always is delayed than what people expect, right? We've been talking about self-driving taxis from 10 years, right? Like, it's still on the scale. Technology is always the lead. That's a fact. But I'm saying there's so much money on the table for the compute, and especially the confidential compute. And I think this is a segment which will tackle like far sooner than what people expect.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's good, because you guys have two different bets. So we'll see who's going to be right in the future.
No, I want to be wrong.
The future will tell.
It's beneficial.
Like we'll see each other like in 5 years we will see each other like around like a mango juice or whatever, because we don't drink any alcohol anymore, and then we'll see who is right and who is wrong. Pay the bill.
Sounds good.
And then Jesse, like what's your take for the future? Then we can close on
in
this.
In 5 years, we're definitely gonna see, I think, new types of models, new types of AI. Like, I don't think LLMs are the end station. I think text is kind of a huge abstraction of reality. So I feel there's gonna be some innovation in the next 5 years where we're gonna see a radically new type of like AI architecture come out. Maybe like the world models that are currently being developed that are trained on video and sound and stuff instead of text, to get like a way broader like understanding of reality. Or maybe like, embodied AI is going to be way bigger. I feel like we're in this accelerated phase where we're going to take some big jumps still within AI models, and we're going to go past LLMs. They will stay relevant, but I think we're going to see more of that stuff happening. Really exciting like innovations. But as a safer part of the bet, I think I will echo what Greg was saying, is that all of this stuff is going to need a lot of compute to run, to train whatever it is. We will need a lot of compute, and the hunger and appetite for AI is just going to increase. The adoption is going to increase. Organizations and people are going to use more and more AI. So I believe, we will definitely go to a point where there is just absolute complete utilization of all the devices that are capable of running models, right? And I think people will keep designing small models just so we can utilize that hardware, even though it might not be that powerful as the 800 or whatever chips are going to come out in 5 years. The hardware that's around add value to all these people that want to use AI. So I think we're going to go to this massive utilization where like decentralized networks, I think, can bring a huge value in like optimizing utilization, making sure the hardware that's out there gets on the market, gets like vouched for, benchmarked and usable for consumers and clients. Yeah, that's the bet.
Thanks, Jesse. And thanks, everyone. We went well over time, so this time we let it go because like there were like just so many insights that have been shared, and also it's not every day that we have like these leaders like at the same table. So thank you, gentlemen, because I'm pretty sure that outside you inspired a lot of people. You managed to build a great product, great companies, to lead great teams. So really appreciate that you're sharing all this value over here, and that you took part of these conversations. So obviously, as we said, we're like different teams, different companies, but we share like the same vision. We want to make compute accessible and affordable for everyone. We want to make sure that it is open, that it is secure, and I think after this conversation, I'm pretty sure like I'm pretty optimistic. There are like some challenges, but challenges mean opportunities, as we can see. And hopefully see you soon, everyone. And take care. Thank you again for your time. Don't turn off the call, guys, because for the technical things, we need to stay online.
Thanks very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Of course.
You.
Thanks.
Big
Appreciate it.